tonight I'm going to wear a different hat. I leave to the philosophical discussion my younger colleagues who are well-trained and very sharp. I want to have my faculty union hat on tonight, and I want to talk about public schools and income inequality. A few quotations to begin with. As the children of the rich do better in school, and those who do better in school are more likely to become rich, we risk producing an even more unequal and economically polarized society. This is Sean F. Reardon, Stanford University. The following quotation is from a very bright 14-year-old student.
Nick, you need to project. I'm in the back row.
We have a school, maybe I should stand up. I always prefer to do that.
There's a microphone there.
No.
Well, that's for radio.
That's the recording.
That's for recording. We have a school named for Dr. King. The school is full of sewer water, and the doors are locked with chains. Every student in our school is black. It's a terrible joke on history. And the last quotation is from Alexis de Tocqueville from Democracy in America. Among the new objects that attracted my attention during my stay in the United States, none struck me with greater force than the equality of conditions. Notice he didn't say equality of opportunity. I brought a book tonight which I think, at least as far as my reading is concerned, is the best book on income inequality. It's called The Spirit Level. And notice the little, if you can see it, the diagram there. It's sort of a teeter-totter with the author's ideal of society as people standing near the center rather than a bunch of people at one end and fewer people at the other. The subtitle of the book, Why Greater Equality Makes Society Stronger, is very descriptive of what the authors attempt to do. Both of them are medical scientists, British medical scientists. One is an epidemiologist. They have studied certain medical and social issues for over 30 years. And what they have studied in particular are trust levels, mental illness, life expectancy, infant mortality, child well-being, educational achievement, teen births, homicides, and incarceration rates from a select number of rich countries. They found that the U.S. consistently performed the worst on all 9 problems. And the most consistent predictor of these problems is economic inequality. The authors also collected data from the 50 states, and they found the same correlation between those 9 problems and income inequality. Tonight I'd like to focus on income equality as it pertains to educational achievement and child well-being. I will not argue that people have the right to the same income as their neighbors, because I believe that people should be rewarded for their talents and their hard work. But I will argue and insist that every child has a right to quality education and health care. This right is recognized by nearly every American, and as my colleague pointed out, it is one of the rights of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. The standard way of measuring income inequality is the Gini coefficient, or the Gini index, where 100 is complete inequality and 0 is complete equality. From 1967 to 2009, the U.S. number rose dramatically from 34 to 47. The average number for the 27 members of the European Union is 31. Finland, whose students compete with the Asians on educational achievement, is at 27. Norway comes in at 24, and Sweden is the most equal society in the world at 23. Linda Hammond at Stanford University notes that in the 60s and 70s, after the Great Society programs went into effect, child poverty was almost cut in half. Student achievement gaps between ethnic groups were reduced, and blacks and Hispanics attended college at a rate equal to whites. Earlier, between 1952 and 1963, when Americans were far more equal in income, SAT scores improved dramatically across all ethnic boundaries. As income inequality increased, SAT scores, particularly verbal scores over 600, gradually dropped for all students, regardless of race or other factors. What the authors of The Spirit Level try to show is that income inequality has negative effects not only for those without any income, but also for those who have a lot. Dropout rates in the United States are progressively higher in states that have more income inequality. In some inner cities, 50% of students leave before they graduate. Significantly and understandably, American teacher retention is 50% higher in wealthy school districts than poor ones. From 1995 to 2005, the U.S. dropped from 17th among rich countries in high school graduation, and it now ranks 27th. Most of the 26, I didn't have time to look at them and see what their Gini index was, but I could just eyeball them. Most of the countries ahead of us in income high school graduation rates were more equal societies. Robert Frank at Columbia, an economics professor, has come up with what he calls the toil index. This is how he defines it. He calculates the number of hours median income employees must work each month to rent a house in a school district that offers an average quality education. That's the toil index. From 1950 to 1970, when America was more equal, the number of hours dropped from 42 hours a month to 41.5 hours a month for a family to rent a house in a district with a good school. But from 1970 to 2000, these are the results of Robert Frank, the toil index rose from 42 hours to 67 hours. Only very determined parents with incredible fiscal discipline are able to make that move to better school districts. The framework fact for the toil index is a strong correlation between local housing prices and American school quality. The U.S. has the lowest taxation rate in all areas except property tax. There we have the fourth highest property taxes in the world. The heavy reliance on property taxes not only leads to disparities in school funding and student achievement, but sometimes it also has a perverse effect of raising the taxes on the poor. For example, in the Rust Belt counties of Pennsylvania, where businesses have fled to rich urban counties, property tax rates in the former, that is, the poor districts, are as much as 6 times higher than the urban districts. 30 years ago, it was primarily race and parental education and involvement that were the main factors in student achievement. But Sean Reardon at Stanford University has discovered in his research that income disparity has now replaced race as a driving factor in the great gap that is growing in educational achievement. He states, the rich-poor gap is now 1.5 times larger than the race gap. 50 years ago, it was just the reverse. Reardon also concludes that rich parents are more inclined to invest in tutors and educational aids for their children in the preschool years on through to high school. Tutors and after-school classes, as many of you may know, are also keys to Asian student success, not only in Asia, but also in the United States. Parents who are working 2 or 3 jobs a day need subsidized daycare and preschool and affordable health care for their children if they are to succeed in school. Conservatives are right to a certain extent. Increasing funding alone does not always solve problems, that is, increasing school funding. A local school may have good teachers and a wonderful learning environment, but as long as poor kids in that neighborhood come to school hungry and sick, they will not succeed. The U.S. ranks last among all rich countries, according to this book, in terms of child well-being. I think that is an international disgrace, that according to 9 factors for child well-being, we cannot rank any higher than last. And the most consistent indicator of child well-being is income inequality across these rich nations. Millions of American children are already lost before they begin school. As long as far too many American families remain dysfunctional and unsafe, as long as far too many do not truly value education, as long as books are not read at home, in homes that do not provide a good learning environment, as long as the teaching profession and their unions are vilified, and as long as income inequality remains at third world levels, America's children will never catch up with their peers in other nations.
Thank you.